red button. Okay, Hannah?
Yeah.
Right, okay, shall we crack on? I'll go through the formalities because it is being recorded. So thank you all for joining the Online Planning Advisory Committee meeting. As ever, please bear with us if there are any technical issues. If the meeting has to be altered for any reason, the minutes will be posted on our website as usual. And please be aware, as I mentioned, this meeting is being recorded. All attendees are automatically muted, and I don't know if we've got any attendees, have we? We have.
Yeah, we've got
attendees, Helen Kay and Jack Davies. Welcome. If you have any questions, please post them on the Q&A board, and we can pick it up there. Or if you're here for a particular item on the agenda, please let us know, and we'll look at that one first. It's really for you, Jack, if you're listening. As normal for councillors, if you wish to raise a comment, please raise your hand or use the blue hand. I think there's only 7 of us tonight, so probably raise the hand would be easier. And then I should clearly see you. Similar for voters, voting councillors, please raise your hand until the vote's been recorded by Jane or Hannah. Jane will clerk as normal, help to ensure we don't miss any important questions, and attempt to show any plans and photos when necessary, and Hannah will take the minutes. So, without any further ado, agenda item number 1. Questions, comments and information from the public or councillors. Start with councillors. Any questions from councillors?
I should just mention that one of the applications, she lives immediately opposite me, or they live immediately opposite me. And I don't know when I should declare that or whether I need to declare that, but I just thought I should say that I have seen the plans. I have no objection, and that they were, personally shared with me before the application was put in. So I just thought I ought to mention that.
Okay, that's number 379, the address 9 the Mount. Is that right?
That's the one. Yes.
Okay, well that's one that we will be discussing. So, Jane, can Anne join the conversation on that? I mean, is that a
it's not prejudicial interest, but yeah, can certainly join the conversation on that one.
Excellent. Any other questions from councillors? Any other questions from District Councillor Helen or member of the public Jack?
We have nothing on the board.
Great, excellent. Item number 2 then on the agenda. Apologies for absence. Hannah, have we got any apologies?
We've got apologies from Lizzie Boyle and Sheila Gore.
Great. Okay. And any declaration of members' interest, and we sort of note that.
I should have put it there. Sorry.
Well, we're not sure if it was a declaration, but there you go. Any other declarations of interest? No. Excellent. Great. Item 3 on the agenda, to agree the minutes of the meeting held 17 September 2020. These ones here. Has everyone read them? Is there any questions, comments or alterations to those minutes? No, in which case could I have someone propose them, please? Thank you, Rich. And seconder, please. Thank you, Mark. And all those in favour, please raise your hand.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellent. And item 4, consider major applications in Appendix 1 of the agenda. And I'll now hand over to Jane, if you want to introduce what we're going to discuss.
Yep, thank you. So the first application that we're going to discuss is number 385 on our list, and that is land at Boundary Avenue, Frome. This is for the demolition of the existing garages and the erection of two two-bedroomed semi-detached houses and 2 3-bedroom semi-detached houses and replacement parking. We have seen this application before. I'm going to attempt to share my screen, and this is undoubtedly where it doesn't work. Nope, it's gonna be the way. I think it's because I've got my second screen on. Okay, apologies, I'll try that again later. Anyway, so we have seen this application before. There was originally an application that was submitted in 2017 with the same description, and that was actually withdrawn. A subsequent application was submitted in 2019, and that was approved in February this year. At the time, our comments were that we objected to the loss of external amenity front garden to the existing apartments, loss of garaging, and the reduction in parking to the existing apartments. This is an overdevelopment that will create a cramped layout of 4 houses too close to the railway line. This application is a slight amendment to that that's already been approved, in as much as all that changes is that they are marginally reducing the size of the houses, and that changes slightly changes the internal layout of the houses. So the number of houses, the parking, and the loss of the green space, all of that remains the same. The Civic Society have commented and said that the loss of external amenity front garden to existing apartments and the loss of garaging and the reduction in parking to the existing apartments is an overdevelopment to create a cramped layout of 4 houses too close to the railway line that will cause vibration and nuisance to occupiers. And some of the existing residents in the area have objected, in summary, concerned about the loss of parking and the loss of green space. I think we can make exactly the same comments as we made on the previous application, because actually it hasn't changed that significantly to change our comments. Unfortunately, though, as the previous application has already been approved, I don't think our comments are going to make any difference to the outcome. But over to councillors for any comment.
Thanks, Jane. Rich?
Just a question, really. Is there more parking on the site than there was before? It seemed to me that there was.
I don't think so. If you take into account the parking that would have been available from the garages, and then I know you can't see it because I can't get my share my screen.
I looked at it. There was 8 garages, wasn't it? And there's supposed to be 8 parking spaces.
Yeah, and then there's parking on the level ground, slightly to the side of those garages. There's quite a significant amount of parking in there, which I imagine is probably used by not just the residents of the apartments that will back onto it, but probably those who live further around in Boundary Avenue as well.
This is one of these where you can see, is it Astor Homes, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're obviously looking to make money, as they are all over the place. So it's another one of those, while you support them because they're doing social housing and everything else, you don't want an overdeveloped site. So it was a bit difficult one for me, that I could see what they were trying to do, but it did still feel a little bit overdeveloped. I am on the fence on this.
Yeah.
It's like one we've seen before, where we thought perhaps it's not a planning issue, but you would be more minded to think it was a good idea if it were building social housing, but it's building speculative houses for sale. Sorry, Paul, I jumped all over you there.
He likes that.
That's fine, Mark. Yeah, I agree. Actually, I would much prefer it if they were building social housing. But actually, I don't really have a significant issue with it. I think, as Rich said, I think it's arguable that they're providing as much, if not more, parking than exists. I mean, I think there's maybe slightly disingenuous in the application where they say that there's 3 or 4 parking spaces on that area of tarmac, whereas actually there's probably a lot more than that. But in reality, the garages aren't used for parking. And they probably haven't been used for they're probably not big enough for modern cars and all those things anyway. I guess you could knock the garages down and build a car park there, so you could probably get 8 cars in there. So you could probably get on that whole site, you might, as it is, if you built a car park where the garage is there, I think you could possibly get 15 or 16 cars. But I think that's the number of parking spaces in the planning application.
Yeah,
So,
I think that's the issue. It's taking away parking from the existing residents, but providing sufficient parking for the new houses.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got you've got 4 additional houses which wouldn't require their own parking. Yeah. But then again, you have got 4 additional houses. So it's I'm not sure I have a massive problem with it.
Any other comments?
The only thing I noticed was the comment from Civic Society about noise by the railway line. But obviously, people are going to buy that place knowing there's a railway line there. So
the documents that accompany the application actually set out the noise mitigation details. They'll have to have obviously better glazing to stop the noise, and the environmental protection team are satisfied that that will deal with the issue, as long as you don't open your windows, presumably.
That's on the Froome Loop, isn't it? Or is that on the? It's on the loop, not the main line, isn't it? That bit.
Yeah.
So
I mean, speaking personally, I have lived next to or close to a railway line in the past, and actually, I found it much preferable to living near a busy road. So,
totally
you could argue it either way.
Totally agree. I sort of agree with Rich what Mark said about if it was social housing, I think it'd be absolutely great. It's and you can see what Asda are doing all over the town. Every garage block that they find, they're looking to knock down and build houses, aren't they? At the moment, this is about the 3rd application that's come through on that basis.
So given that we know that our objection previously was not sufficient and the application went through and was approved, I'm sensing rather than Hannah's got yes.
Sorry, Helen K has just popped in the question and answer. Do you have a view on loss of trees?
It didn't look to me that they were going to lose any big trees. They were going to keep the tree out the front, weren't they? The big poplar, I think it is, from memory, and the smaller ones, would be lost, I think, but it would be relatively easy to replant something of that sort of size somewhere else on the site, I would have thought.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that there were any significant trees that would be lost as a result of this development. Yes, so
it does feel a bit like a fait accompli, doesn't it? Really, as you say, Jane, if we put these comments in previously and it's still got approved, I'm not really sure what impact we can have, really, or what effect we can have.
No, I think you're right, Anita. We could certainly make reference to the fact that we would prefer this to be social housing rather than market housing. But I really don't think there's much point in putting forward our objection in the same way that we did last time.
Yeah, I would go along with that, I must admit.
So is somebody happy to propose that we respond saying that we would prefer that it were social housing as our response? Okay. Anita, thank you. And second? Yeah. Are you going to say it or am I?
Well, you started it, so you might as well finish.
Right. So all those in favour? And that's unanimous, thank you. I'll let you do it next time. Okay, thank you. So the second application that we are going to look at is number 379 on our list, and that is, bear with me, that is not that one, that's 9 The Mount, and the application is for a single-storey infill rear extension, an attic conversion with a rear dormer, roof lights to the front elevation, internal alterations, garage conversion and associated landscaping. And this is the one that Anne has declared an interest in, but as I say, she can be involved in the discussion. The Civic Society have commented on this one. I'll just run you through that in case you haven't seen it. So the proposed roof extension is an unsympathetic overdevelopment of a modest semi-detached bungalow. The resultant first floor bifolds from the master bedroom are disproportionate, wish they wouldn't use so many long words, and will cause the flat roof to the new dining room extension to become a terrace overlooking the rear of the house behind in Feltham Lane, as well as the adjoining property. The 5 roof lights along the front elevation are unsightly. The loss of the garage and driveway space results in the loss of the front garden to 4 car parking spaces, eroding the quality of the environment in the neighbourhood. The plans were actually, in my opinion, very, very difficult to look at, and I certainly didn't pick up on what the Civic Society is saying when I first looked at them. But I think on reflection, if you go back and look at them, they certainly do have a point there. And Paul has said that no objection in principle. There's a lot of roof lights on the front, which it certainly is. And thankfully, he said the way the drawings were presented made it difficult to navigate as well. So it wasn't just me. And his worry about the loss of all the domestic garages is where will people park their electric bikes? So yes, I mean, I think the adjoining bungalow also has an extension to the rear, because initially I thought there would be some overshadowing issues, but as I say, having looked at it a second time, it does certainly appear that there will be some overlooking issues. There weren't any comments from any of the neighbours late this afternoon when I looked. So over to you to discuss further.
John.
I take the point about the flat roof becoming a terrace, but I often wonder about that. Can you say that it's not going to be a terrace, or just does it become a terrace? You see what I mean? Can you make the conditionality that it doesn't become an overlooking terrace? Because you see that, and actually potentially that's happening all over Frome if people just start walking out onto their roofs, which I know happens. I'm just wondering. It's just a technical question, Jane, to you, because this is my master's course early module in planning, please.
I mean, they certainly could add a condition in that respect, but it would seem fairly pointless. It would be probably better to redesign it so that they weren't able to do that, because it's the kind of thing that who's going to monitor that, and who's going to enforce it.
Okay.
And over time, I think it would just happen, and that's what would happen. So potentially it would be better to rethink how that was built rather than try and condition it.
But the people it's overlooking haven't complained.
There is nothing online.
Okay.
Certainly not submitted directly to mend it, not yet anyway. I mean, they still have time to do that if they want to.
It's very difficult to look at it all together.
Aim.
I would just question about the loss of parking. There's parking all along the front of those 2 bungalows. So along the edge of the road, there's a hard standing for cars, as well as the drive that leads up to the garage. So yes, although the garage is not going to be there anymore, but they don't use the garage to park their car in anyway. You know, they've got a van and their car that they park on the drive, and visitors park along the hard standing at the front. So and I would, at the moment it's a 2-bedroom bungalow, so it shouldn't need 4 car parking spaces for a 2-bedroom bungalow in the normal scheme of things. But yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Rich? Still muted.
That was weird. I couldn't unmute then. Never mind. Yeah, I kind of agree with everything that's been said. The overlooking thing, I think, was the worst thing for me. Although I have a nice view of Selwood Garden Village if it ever happens and all that, you know, it'd be lovely. But if the neighbours aren't bothered, I guess what can you do? It's a very big garden at the back there. So, you know, in terms of expansion of the house, I don't think it's an over expansion for the plot of land on there. I never really like to see front gardens being swallowed up by cars, but that is the way we are, I guess, these days. But I didn't have any strong objections. It was just the overlooking thing really for me, and totally agree that the drawings, I had to look at the drawings loads of times to get it in my head what was going on.
The front garden isn't swallowed up by cars. It's a hard standing, and then there's a wall. It was always designed like that it has a hard standing along the front of the. Can you bring it up on Street View, Jane?
Well, that's what I was hoping to do. There's a question from Helen. If somebody would read that out, I'll try and sort out my issues with trying to bring up Street View for you.
Helen's asking if the roof lights will create light spill, as there's a lot of bats in the area. I think the ecology consultee has already commented that he didn't think that that this would interfere with the bats at all. He said there is a prevalence of horseshoe bats, but from memory, from what I read of his comments, he didn't think it was an issue.
Yeah, I think you're right, Steve.
Is that right? Thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
The one thought I had, Jane, is knowing that they're putting the bifold doors in, you know, means that obviously their intention is to walk out onto this roof to create a roof terrace. Should there not be some sort of safety, you know, barrier or something like that?
Yeah.
Because at the moment, I mean, a little child could wander out of a bifold door or off to, you know, across a roof and straight off the edge.
I'm sure that's an issue that the building control department would pick up if they looked at it. I mean, certainly they would want to ensure that the roof structure was actually suitable to be walked on, and secondly that it was safe. But I think the bigger issue is if somebody does walk out onto that roof, it's actually the level of overlooking that will be caused from them standing there. That's the bigger issue.
Sure. Yeah, and I think you have to assume if they're putting bifold doors in,
Yeah,
the intention is to walk out onto the roof, isn't it? I mean, you wouldn't put them in any otherwise, would you?
No. Can you all see that now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess this is the parking bit that Anne was talking about out the front.
Yeah.
The roof lights, well, I think there's 4 will be on the front there. I knew that would happen.
There's actually 5 roof lights on the drawing.
Sorry, 5 roof lights. Presumably the garage is at the
it's
end
just,
there.
yes,
Yeah.
just up that drive, and at the end is the garage.
I can't get it to stop on the angle so that you can see up there. And I think if you wanted to have a look at the rear of the property by going, you can. So this is the neighbouring attached bungalow, and you can see that they do actually have a single-storey extension at the back there already. So that's why I didn't think there'd be any overshadowing issues, but obviously the overlooking issues are sort of worse than that in that respect.
that extension on the neighbour is actually on the opposite side anyway, isn't it? So
Yes, it is. Yeah.
there is potentially where there's overlooking, and because they haven't got the infield extension that this proposal's got, so I guess there is some potential overshadowing. Is there? Maybe not actually, because it's only a single story extension.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
at that point.
Jane, the neighbouring bungalow that you're talking about, is that, if we're looking at the bungalow as we are now, is it the one on the left or the right of it?
It's the one on the left.
On the left, okay.
Yeah. So the application is for this one here on the right.
Okay.
So they are actually putting quite a lot of money in, substantially increasing the size of the volume of the house, making it much more attractive for sure.
Yeah.
They're obviously also they are changing the front garden to some extent. Then they're moving that wall back to create the extra parking spaces. But they're so there's two spaces. There'll be two spaces rather than one, effectively, I guess.
Okay, so it appears that there is a general concern about I'll stop sharing now, about the bifold doors and the potential use. Sorry, Paul.
Yeah, well, sorry, I was just I was just going to preempt what you said. Actually, I was wondering whether we can say something like we'd like to see a Juliet balcony type arrangement or something like that, so that they can open doors at that level, but they can't step out. Yeah.
So that would be the redesigned solution, I think, if that was certainly the intention. So we're objecting to the bifold doors and the potential for using the roof space as it stands, and then suggest the solution be a Juliet balcony where they can open the doors but not step out. And
should we cite for the reasons both overlooking and safety?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm not quite clear how we're feeling about the roof lights at the front.
Essential to make that space work.
I think it'd be nice to see less of them, but I suspect that actually when they come to build it, they may find that they'll end up putting less in anyway. But who knows? Okay. But they seem to be kind of quite a lot of very small roof lights from what I can see. But
yes.
I would have thought they're more likely to put in 3 larger ones probably. But who knows?
Yeah. Okay, so just to summarise, we object to the bifold doors to the rear with the potential for people to step out onto the roof, which will cause overlooking and safety issues. We would suggest that this could be dealt with by the use of a Juliet balcony where the doors can be opened but not allow people to step out. Okay.
Yep.
It's your turn, Steve.
Oh, thanks, Jane. Right, so those were the only two that.
Oh no, sorry, that was maybe. I'd need somebody to propose that.
Right.
John.
Anyone second, please? John seconding, and all in favour.
And that's unanimous. Thank you.
Right, excellent. So there was no other applications on the list that we felt should be discussed in detail. There's quite a lot of trees, but I think from what I could see, a lot of them seem to be quite justified in the pruning. Some very large trees. Is there any other applications that any other councillors would like to mention or discuss? Rich.
Very quickly, 381, 382, Domets Lane trees, just to say, we don't have to look at it. I thought the plans for that were excellent. It was really clear which trees they were talking about. There was bags of information. The full survey was there. Lots of explanation, really clear. That's what we want, okay? Because it wasn't true for all of those applications.
That there was that's slightly countered by the fact that obviously the residents in the care home received notification of the tree works, but literally all they got was a letter with the description, which refers to works to T1, T2, T4, and they didn't understand what it's about, didn't have access to view the plans online. So we're really worried that their favourite tree was going to be felled. But yes, you're right. It was, if you can access it, it was a very detailed application.
A proper job.
Yeah.
So if there's no other comments, can I sort of make a proposal that all the other applications are agreed with no objection from the committee?
Yeah.
If someone could propose that. Thank you, Mark. And someone second. Thank you, Anne. And all those in favour?
And that's unanimous. Thank you. I would just like to add, for anybody who is viewing this meeting, that councillors have looked at all of the plans and applications online separately before this meeting. And I just wanted to make you aware of that, which is why we're only discussing those where we know that issues have been raised in advance.
Great. Thank you very much. In which case, thank you all for attending, and I think we call this one to a close. The next planning meeting will be on the 29th of October. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Have a good night.
And that is the way. And that is the way to run a meeting. I love